So coming up this weekend, the UFC is going to be returning to Brazil for a fight night headlined by Charles Oliveira as he does take on Mateusz Gamrot. And as you can imagine, I'm a very happy man. It has been a great weekend for Brazil. It's been a great weekend for Alex Pereira. It's been a great weekend for me. Now, you may have noticed on Twitter, I've been having a great time. I've been harassing the MMA Joey as he has been tweeting some absolute nonsense. And he doesn't even have a blue tick. He's just tweeting nonsense for the love of the game. And, in some ways I respect it, in some ways I don't. Speaking of Brazil, this flag sort of style of a poster, not a big fan. If you go into Rio de Janeiro, Christ the Redeemer is like one of the wonders of the world. That would be epic in the background of a poster. They've done great posters in the past. I just think they've missed on this one. Another thing, of course, is I have got Contender Series videos out on my channel. And I don't think that I really have anything else to say. If you wanted to sign up to We Want Picks, 10% off your first month with the code AWESOME. Now let's get into it. This is the Tapology order. Might not be the final order, but we are going to roll on. I do think that Luan Lacerda is going to beat Saimon Oliveira. Saimon Oliveira, he's just not very good. You know, he's a guillotine merchant. He somehow managed to get through the Contender Series with a win over Jose Aldo, who also wasn't really all that. And aside from the guillotine, he doesn't really offer all that much. He's not a very good striker. That's been exposed in the UFC far too many times now. He pulled guillotine that never worked against Gravely multiple times. And I just think against Luan Lacerda, he's going to be at a striking disadvantage. And he's even going to be at a grappling disadvantage because I think Luan Lacerda's grappling is pretty solid. Now, he did lose to Damon Blackshear, but Blackshear genuinely has like a borderline top 15 skill set if he can put it all together on the night. And against Cody Stamann, you know, he had a pretty good performance against Stamann. I can't remember if this was short notice or not, but I do remember a lot of striking happening in this fight. Well, I do remember because I watched the fight recently. But Lacerda had a pretty good striking performance against Stamann. And at the time, I know Stamann's been on a bit of a streak of losing recently. But at the time, Stamann was a pretty hyped up prospect. And I do think that Lacerda held his own on the feet in that one too. Another thing about Lacerda as well is he is a Nova União guy. You watch his regional fights, Jose Aldo is in his corner. Jose Aldo might be in his corner tonight. Maybe he gets a pop from the crowd, but I don't think it's going to matter. I think Lacerda beats him. I think Lacerda finishes him. Now we can move up to Polastri as she does take on Kowalkiewicz. I think that Kowalkiewicz is just getting old, and now we might see her unfortunately go on another losing streak because I do think she loses this fight here against Polastri. Polastri's pretty good everywhere. I actually was very high on her after she did come in off the Contender Series with her submission victory. I think she's a pretty good striker. I think she hits pretty hard for the weight class, and she does have some wrestling and grappling to back it up. If anything, she will be the more aggressive fighter in this fight, and I think that is going to pay her dividends against a striker in Kowalkiewicz who just recently has been fighting relatively low volume, hasn't been pressuring as much as she used to. I do think that Polastri is going to go out there and have some success on the feet and maybe even shoot some takedowns on occasion as well. I think Polastri is going to win a decision in this fight. And now we have the Battle of the Bros. We have Valter Walker as he does fight against Mohammaed Usman. And I think it is just inevitable that Valter Walker pulls off his knee bar KO again, heel hook KO, TKO, submission. I've had a long day, guys. I literally drove 10 hours today, so I do apologize. But I think that he is going to submit Mohammaed Usman with a heel hook again. Now, Usman is probably the better wrestler, pure wrestler out of the two, so maybe I could see him, you know, get some takedowns of his own and then get heel hooked from that position or defend the takedowns of Valter Walker. Another thing about Valter Walker is he is a walking victim on the feet. I think that his striking is awful. Absolutely terrible, especially if you watch his fight against Alex Nicholson. He just looks so bad, which is why I did pick him to lose against the great Junior Tafa, of course. But we'll talk about Junior Tafa in a moment because there is a glory kickboxer on the card later on. I do think that Valter Walker does win this fight. I think he wins it by submission. It might not be by heel hook, but for the memes, for the gigs, I am going to pick him to win. And I do think he does win. Sorry, I just want to clarify that. Clicking random buttons with my mouse here. Lucas Rocha takes on Stewart Nicoll. I was not impressed with Stewart Nicoll's performance against Jesus Aguilar. And in general, I'm not super high on him as a prospect. Now, Lucas Rocha is a guy off the Contender Series I was looking to fade. And of course, we did successfully fade him with the Clayton Carpenter pick. The thing about Rocha is he is always going to be coming forward and striking and throwing combinations and being really aggressive. But his takedown defense is some of the worst you'll probably ever see. On his LFA career, or his one fight in his LFA career, I should say, Bittencourt did take him down in round 1, was finding success. Severino was finding success with him after taking him down in round 1. And then after that, Rocha was able to come back and to find a lot of success. And even against Bittencourt was able to find some sort of grappling success as well. Rocha, he gets taken down always in the first round, but he typically stands up again and then knocks his opponents out. I could see that happening because Nicoll's going to need to wrestle here. Nicoll, he did not like it when Jesus Aguilar was coming forward and landing on him at all. And Lucas Rocha is going to pressure forward, throw combinations, and just be a wild man in there. I do think Rocha is going to get taken down, but I also think he's going to get back up, and he's just going to knock out Nicoll after getting taken down. Again, I think this could be a classic Lucas Rocha performance. I got fights all the way mixed up on that one, but we can move on with pretending nothing happened. Irina Alekseeva fights against Beatriz Mesquita. Now, Beatriz Mesquita, I do wish that I had her Wikipedia page brought up because she has probably achieved some of the most successes in BJJ before coming over to MMA. She has won 24 titles at a black belt level. She has 10 gold medals in BJJ. She won the world championship multiple times as well. In fact, she won the world championship, I want to say, 9 times in a row in BJJ. Like, this is not just some random person coming over to MMA. These are all gold medals in a row. And then, of course, she's won a lot of other, like, European championships, Brazilian national championships, Pan American championships. You name it, she's won it, and she's probably won it 6 or 7 times. Now, we have seen BJJ fighters come over, especially in the heavyweight division recently, and not find success. But I think that this is different. I do think that Mesquita is going to find success at the UFC level. She has looked okay in MMA fighting for LFA. I will put that out there. She hasn't looked perfect, but I do think that once the fight does get to the ground, she does find a lot of success. Now, Hope Chase was finding success against her in moments, and on the feet, she is terrible at striking. She just is. Her fight against Sierra Dinwoody is kind of hilarious because Dinwoody is 5'11", ridiculously tall, and Beatriz Mesquita is 5'4". But that was a pretty good win because I do think that Dinwoody has the skill set, or at least has the physicals to make it to the UFC herself. Now, the thing about Mesquita is she is taking on Alekseeva, and we cannot forget that Alekseeva did knee bar the former judoka, European gold medalist, once again a judoka that had won probably everything you could name, in Stephanie Eger. So maybe Alekseeva pulls off a meme KO, a meme submission here. I don't think it's going to happen though. I do think we are going to see Beatriz Mesquita get the fight down to the ground and find success from there. Another thing about Alekseeva as well is I just don't think she really offers the striking that's just going to knock out Mesquita. Now, she does hit relatively hard and she will be the bigger fighter out of the two here, but I think we are going to see Mesquita get a submission victory here, and I think she could be one to watch, man. I think that she is a pretty legitimate prospect with those accolades, and so far in her MMA career, she's looked okay. Vitor Petrino now fights against Thomas Peterson at heavyweight, of course. Petrino went to heavyweight, had that fight against Austin Lane. Looked okay. I mean, he did beat the piss out of him, to be fair. But that is Austin Lane. Austin Lane isn't quite UFC level, and Thomas Peterson has proven that he is a little bit UFC level. He's got a couple of wins over the great Mohammaed Usman, and recently against the great Dante Almeida. But I do think that Vitor Petrino is a big step up in competition for him. I think that Petrino hits hard enough to hurt Peterson. Peterson's striking defense isn't amazing. Now, he does have a decent level of head movement, I would say, for a heavyweight, but it's not great. He's very flat-footed in general, and he is really just kind of a come-forward wrestler that doesn't really have too much more to offer. Petrino is a guy that come in to MMA, and he was just knocking everyone out. He was a striker. Coming to the UFC, started wrestling for some reason, which really confused me, because I don't know if you guys remember, I was picking him to win by knockout in all of these fights, and then he was winning by decision, he's winning by submission. He was really throwing me off, man. But I do think that against Peterson, he's going to have a striking advantage. I think he's even going to hit harder. I mean, he weighed in at 250 pounds after coming up from light heavyweight. He's a big boy. I think he's going to knock out Peterson in this fight here. Give me Petrino. Give me Petrino by KO. This is a fight I think a lot of people are going to be split on. I am a really big believer in Clayton Carpenter, though, and I am going to be picking him to win this fight. And the thing about Phil Ho is I know that the guys that we want picks, like Angelo, like Jacob, maybe Bitsam, is also in love with this man. I personally am not. I've actually picked against Phil Ho many times. I picked Nascimento to beat him. I picked Daniel Barrios to beat him, and that was nearly an amazing pick at only plus 100. Oh, that's depressing. But Barrios was beating the piss out of him on the feet, and then he just kind of got caught and got submitted. Now, the thing about Phil Ho, though, is he is still pretty talented. He did beat Echeverria, which has aged relatively well. I know Echeverria has a terrible loss recently, though, but against Nascimento, put up a pretty good fight against Nascimento, who should be a bantamweight. Let's be honest, he's massive, and he is a very slick grappler. The thing about Clayton Carpenter, though, is Carpenter's good at everything. He's a Golden Gloves boxing champion. He's a Pancration champion. He's a BJJ champion. I think he's even got got some sort of wrestling accolades in there. You name it, outside of MMA, an individual sort of sports, Clayton Carpenter's competed in it, and he's won in it. At the world level, at the European level, at the national level in the USA, he's won it. And I think that it does come through in his career, man. I know that he did lose to Tagir Ulanbekov, but Ulanbekov is a guy that I will admit is improving a lot recently, and he just couldn't really deal with the physicality with the wrestling of Ulanbekov. But before that, beat Lucas Rocha, of course, what I mentioned before, beat the great Ronderos, but that was a layup. And then he beat Chairez, and that's aged well because Chairez had a pretty tough fight against Tatsuro Taira. But I think on the feet, Carpenter's going to have an advantage here. Now, maybe he doesn't hit as hard as Phil Ho, which could be an argument you could make, but I think he's more technical. I think that he is also going to be more aggressive. He throws a lot of combos. I love combinations. You guys know I love boxing combinations. I think he's going to go out there and beat Phil Ho in that way. And I do think that he is minus 120. Okay, money is coming in on Carpenter. Maybe Phil Ho's going to be the We Want Picks lock of the week. I'm sorry, Jacob. I do really like Carpenter. I think he's also pretty cool. Lucas Almeida fights against Nicoll as well. When this fight was first booked, the first thought that I had was, oh yeah, I think that Lucas Almeida is going to win this fight. Now, the thing about me and Lucas Almeida is I think that I have really overrated Lucas Almeida's skill set throughout his UFC career. I actually have picked Almeida to win a lot of these fights. I think I even picked him to beat Pat Sabatini. And I definitely picked him to beat Danny Silva, even though I do actually agree that he lost the fight. But Almeida, I think he's a guy that I thought was a lot better than he actually is. But it's because he's got a very interesting sort of contender series story. And I don't really know why Dana White doesn't make people do this again. Where against Zellhuber, he was beating up Zellhuber in round number 1. And then what happened was Zellhuber started to take over and won rounds 2 and 3. And Dana White signed Zellhuber. And he said to Almeida, win one fight and we'll get you in the UFC. I don't understand why Dana White doesn't do that for more fighters, even some guys that win on the contender series. Because what he went out there, he submitted a 10-3 opponent in the first round. And he got his UFC contract. And then he knocked out Mike Trezano. Pretty fun. But the thing is, he struggles against pressure. And Nicoll as well is also a fighter who I feel like I might have underrated as well in the past. Of course, I did pick Yadia. Sorry, no, that's a lie. I picked Bogdan Grad to beat him, and I did pick Balaji Oki to beat him, but he gave Oki one hell of a fight in that matchup on very short notice, upper weight class as well. And the thing that Nicoll as well does better than maybe every single one of Lucas Almeida's opponents, honestly, in the past, is the pressure, man. He comes forward and he will pressure. I mean, maybe you could argue that Danny Silva could do it a bit better, but as well went out there and he landed many strikes on Oki moving forward, throwing combinations. I love combinations, and I do think that eventually he's just going to kind of break Almeida. Almeida looks amazing when he's coming forward, but if you don't give him the opportunity to come forward, you know, we saw it in the fight on the contender series years and years ago against Zellhuber. He doesn't like being pressured. He does slow down, as well shown. He went 3 rounds, upper weight class, against Balaji Oki, who's a big boy. on short notice, and he gave Oki a tough fight for 3 rounds. I think he's going to give Almeida a tough fight for 3 rounds, and I think he is going to win the matchup in this fight. Another thing about as well, he's a really nice guy. He did a little bit of charity work recently for a friend of mine, 138 MMA. So shout out to as well. Pretty nice guy, just in general. Ricardo Ramos versus Karnov Lee. I do think Ramos wins. I think if you're betting on this fight, there's better opportunities. Now, Off Lee, once again, I overrated Off Lee so much, man. You know, he looked so good. I'm looking for the Ultimate Fighter. I thought he looked really good on the Ultimate Fighter. Nathan Fletcher is not a bum. Nathan Fletcher's good. And then against Myron Santos, you know, he did lose to Myron Santos. Kind of got exposed against Santos, to be fair. And then once again got exposed against Naimov that maybe his striking just isn't quite as good as it needs to be. And Ricardo Ramos ain't no Alex Pereira, but he's a decent striker. The thing about Ramos is the takedown defense in the past has been pretty poor. But, you know, maybe does training against with Team Alpha Mayo, and I think even like Bruno Lopez trains at China Team as well. He could be getting some pretty good takedown defense looks in those 2 gyms. So I think as long as Ramos keeps it on the feet, and I know Ramos is a BJJ guy, but I think he's got a striking advantage here. And I think that's where he kind of just needs to keep the fight, is on the feet. And I think that he's going to have the striking advantage from range. Karnov Lee, 66-inch reach, needs to close the distance, doesn't have great head movement, which you kind of need at 145. You know, Alexander Volkanovski sort of, you know, used head movement to beat Max Holloway. Why am I... Let's move on. I'm picking Ramos. Renato Diniz versus Mario Pinto. Okay, gonna get another crazy rant out of me here. So Renato Diniz, right? Former Glory kickboxer, had a relatively successful Glory kickboxing career, had a relatively successful kickboxing career in general. Now, to my knowledge, Renato Diniz didn't crack the top 10, or maybe he did since he fought Verhoeven. But so Diniz comes over to MMA, right, with a very successful Glory kickboxing career. And Junior Tuffer, a former top 10 Glory kickboxer, can't cut it in the UFC. Make it make sense to me, man. Come on, Junior Tuffer, please come back. Like, my last string of sanity after losing it all on Patchy Mix. Dude, I have wasted years of my life watching Bellator. I don't think you guys understand how much time I have wasted following Bellator just for Patchy Mix, a guy that I genuinely believed at one point could beat Sean O'Malley. Genuinely believed it. Please, Junior Tuffer, please. Oh my god. Now, this fight's interesting to me because I think that Mario Pinto is the real deal. I think that he's an incredible prospect. I really do. And I did find out about Mario Pinto when he did win the Levels Fight League championship, I guess you could say. A one-night tournament. He fought 3 times in one night in 2023. And then after that, I watched him follow a few other guys. I mean, he beat Benjamin Sahik, who is probably one of the most hilarious fighters you will ever see. He is a heavyweight that is 6'9", that just rolls for leg locks all the time. Absolutely hilarious fight. In fact, if I'm going to put you on to something, guys, I think that you need to watch the fight against, I think it's this guy here, Gennady Zhuzhelani, in which he is just like failing leg locks over and over again. And then eventually he just ends up catching Gennady with something weird. Yeah, so I'm slowly descending into insanity. Now, the thing about this fight is Mario Pinto, I thought he was the real deal. I think he's really good. A 79-inch reach, 6'5", looked really, really good on the regional scene. Even did beat Kasim Miraz, who was a former Bellator guy who had some Bellator success. Once again, I wasted my entire life watching Bellator. But he looked terrible against Lucas Camacho, man. Lucas Camacho is not a good fighter at all. He has a loss. No, he has a win over someone else that was on the Contender Series recently at heavyweight who's also terrible. And Pinto stood there and he brawled with Lucas Camacho. If he's going to go out there and stand and brawl with Renato Diniz, he's going to get knocked out. Do you guys want to know why? Because he's a former Glory kickboxing heavyweight that's really good. But Junior Taffa, a former top 10 Glory kickboxing heavyweight. Oh my goodness. I'm picking Diniz. I'm picking Diniz as the underdog. I think he wins by knockout. Pinto, I hate that he got into a brawl against Camacho. I've always kind of, after that, think, oh, if he fights someone that's going to hit hard, and who hits harder than a former Glory kickboxer Janata Diniz. Vicente Luque is going to fight against Joel Alvarez. Joel Alvarez, I think, has taken this on short notice, upper weight class. But I don't think it matters because Joel Alvarez was planning on moving to welterweight anyway. He hits really hard. He's missed weight so many times as well at lightweight. I mean, just ridiculous a few times. And then he kind of sorted it out. And then I think they were just like, no more of this. I think even he had some sort of complication here. I don't know. It doesn't matter because my boy Luque is going to get knocked out. Now, Luque, I will admit, isn't really a fighter that I've become a crazy fan of during his reign when he was the Dark Knight, when he was just submitting people with Dark chokes back to back, because I do have to put my hand up and say it. I just wasn't really that big on Luque, but he is fun. He always puts on bangers. And the thing is, as well, that does scare me a little bit, is he had that brain injury, and I think it was in between this 2022-2023 break. He had a brain injury. And after that, it's like, dude, like I'm scared for Luque. And I'm scared for Luque now. Alvarez is coming up from 155. He's not going to look like a lightweight in there, guys. He's massive. He hits hard. The takedown defense, to be fair, is absolutely terrible. But it doesn't really matter that much because he does have good BJJ, good grappling. And I think that Alvarez is just going to kind of do what Alvarez does against my boy Luque. And I'm going to be sad about it. But that's life. Unfortunately, we just have to live with these things. As sad as they may be. Deiveson Figueiredo takes on Montel Jackson. Now, I did actually look into the great Angelo Bedetti's breakdown for this one here on the We Want Picks YouTube channel. And he did bring up some points, but I think that Montel Jackson wins the fight. He did say that he couldn't really see anything in Montel Jackson's fights on the tape that kind of he can put together to then sort of justify him beating Deiveson Figueiredo. And I kind of like that take because that's how I pick fights. The way that I like to pick fights is I see what happens, I try and find similarities in the matchup, and then I kind of make my pick based on that. But I also do think that you can not maybe look at Jackson's fights, you can look at Figueiredo's fights, and you can see, and I bring up this fight too much, I know I do, the Cody Garbrandt fight. When I watched this fight for the first time, I was shocked at how much success Cody Garbrandt was having on the feet. And I do think that, you know, Montel Jackson and Cody Garbrandt don't fight the same. But I do think the fact that he did struggle with a really big bantamweight with his striking, that is what Montel Jackson does really well. I mean, Jackson's a good wrestler, but he's also a great boxer. He's got massive hands. I mean, he's got the same size hands as Francis Ngannou, if you can believe it. And I don't know what that means. It does mean he wears big gloves, but it also somehow means that he's got big power in those hands as well. So I think that Montel Jackson, you know, we did see him have a very close one against Marcos. I did pick Jackson to win that one. I picked him to beat Damon Blackshear as well. I mean, I've just kind of been backing Jackson all the way. He was like minus 2,500 against Rainer Yaya back when those odds were crazy. But I think in this fight, man, I think the size disadvantage is really going to show for Figgy. I don't think he's going to be able to take down Montel Jackson. And I know at 125 pounds, Figgy was this dangerous, scary striker. I mean, he nearly killed one of the greatest flyweights of all time twice in Joseph Benavidez. Poor Joseph Benavidez. But aside from that, you know, once he's come up to 135, that power, it hasn't really translated that much. He's not really as much of a scary force in the power on the feet at 135 pounds like he was at 125. So I just think that Jackson's not really going to have to worry about just getting colded here. I think he's going to be able to find success on the feet, defend the takedowns. I don't think he's going to knock out Figgy. I mean, Figgy did just go out there against Sandhagen. He did unfortunately get injured with the grappling sort of situation. But against Jan is a much better boxer than Montel Jackson, is one of the best boxers in the promotion in general. And Figgy didn't get knocked out by Jan. Now, Jackson does hit harder. I don't think Jackson's going to knock him out, though. I'm going to pick Jackson by decision. Now we move up to the main event. Short notice. Who do you guys really think I'm going to pick to win this fight? Come on now. Do you really think I'm going to fade my boy Charlie Olives? No. No, I can't do it. Now, I did pick Ilia Topuria to knock out Charles Oliveira, and it did suck to do, but sometimes you just need to give in and accept reality. But however, I just don't think that reality is picking against Charles do Bronx as an underdog when he's had a full camp. and he's taken on a short notice Mateusz Gamrot. Now, the thing about Charles do Bronx is how locked in is he really? Because he was in the corner of his boys' fight on the Contender Series last week. He was in Vegas. He wasn't training at Shooter Box for probably about a week because he was coaching his boy, who has the crazy long name. I forgot his name, but he lost to Vagabov anyway. And then Vagabov didn't even get a contract, even though Vagabov is one of the best fighters they've had on the entire show this year. But that's the Contender Series, huh? Anyways, he did lose to Ilya Tapiria. It was very, very tragic. It was very, very sad. But before then, we did see him put on a pretty wrestling-heavy game plan against Michael Chandler and a really good performance against Arman Tsarukyan. And that's a similar matchup to Mateusz Gamrot here. And of course, Gamrot, we know what he's good at. We know what he's going to do. He's going to try and wrestle. And yes, Charles Oliveira's takedown defense, it's not fantastic because he does like to pull guard like an idiot sometimes, which really does drive me nuts. But it's not bad. Like, the takedown defense isn't bad. And on the feet, I think he is going to have a significant advantage here. And we've seen it before against rangy guys that do strike from range. I mean, I said the same thing twice in one sentence, but that's this video for you. That Mateusz Gamrot does struggle a little bit. Now, of course, he did lose to Dan Hooker. And you wouldn't believe who picked Dan Hooker in that fight, huh? Plus 200 underdog. Do you think I'm going to doubt the Hangman? Do you think I'm going to doubt the Hangman against Arman Tsarukyan? Yeah, probably. But it's against Mateusz Gamrot, dude. Dan Hooker's takedown defense is elite. And that's probably the argument that a lot of people will make when they do see that I have made that comparison to the Hooker versus Oliveira matchup. Is yes, they're both tall, rangy strikers that do fight from range. I am descending into insanity. Patchy Mix, what have you done to me? Oliveira's takedown defense isn't as good as Hooker's. I don't think. Hooker's probably has some of the best takedown defense in the UFC. We're about to find out, though, against Tsarukyan, huh? But I think that on the feet, Gamrot has a lot less to offer, and he always has had a lot less to offer. Now, if you look into Gamrot's career, I don't think he ever won anything in wrestling at the World Championship level, but he did win European Championship level competitions in wrestling, and we always have said that in pure wrestling, Mateusz Gamrot probably has the best wrestling, if not second or third best wrestling, out of anyone in the entire lightweight division. And now that Islam Makhachev has left, that probably does hold true. But the thing is, he doesn't really have the other things. Like, Charles Oliveira has the BJJ. He's got the submission arsenal. He can submit off his back. He can submit in top position. And another thing as well is Oliveira, he just hits hard. You know, I mean, Justin Gaethje, maybe he was being truthful. Maybe he wasn't. Said that Charles Oliveira was one of the hardest guys, hitting guys that he's ever fought against. Now, to be fair, he did smoke Gaethje in the first round, so I guess it does make sense. But our GOAT, our Pookie Bear, Charles Oliveira, is nearly 36 years old as well. You know, that is pretty old, guys. But I just think that, I think Olive's has still got it. You know, I think he's still got one last fight in him. And maybe it is a matter of time when Oliveira, maybe he does retire after this fight. Maybe Oliveira, he moves up to 170 pounds. That could be a reality. I could see that happening. And maybe he just fights against, like, Kamaru Usman for legacy or something like that. But I think Oliveira wins. I think Oliveira wins by knockout in this matchup against Mateusz Gamrot. Now, Gamrot's never been knocked out, obviously. But he has been knocked down by Arman Tsarukyan. And I do think that he is going to go out there and get knocked out by Charles do Bronx in Brazil. And, yeah. It's time for me to go to sleep. It's nearly midnight. Yeah, it's been a long day. It's been a long day. Please, Patchy Max, please go on a title run. I need you.